We all know by now that the gaming industry is pretty chaotic, and controversies really are a dime a dozen these days. And no other discourse proves this better than the current one surrounding Stellar Blade. You know, the upcoming third-person action game featuring a pretty striking protagonist in the form of Eve, whose job it is to seemingly save humanity from hostile aliens. Now, in my last video about Stellar Blade, I went over some of my thoughts after playing through the demo several times, and in said video I expressed that I was positively surprised by Stellar Blade, as hidden beneath a very pretty shell, the game features surprisingly deep gameplay mechanics and some really enjoyable exploration, despite the small amount showcased in the demo. That said, I obviously don't want to judge the full game, obviously because the full game is not out yet, but the future is looking pretty bright for Stellar Blade and its developer Shift Up. Because the general consensus is leaning towards Stellar Blade not only possibly being a good game, but a great game that could turn out to be one of the better titles released in 2024. Now, naturally, not all people feel this way. And that's okay. Having different opinions and being able to express them is just a basic human right, yes? That said, there have been some pretty mean-spirited comments not only about Stellar Blade, but about the developers behind the game itself. Like in a recent article from IGN France, where the author of said article said about Eve's design, and I quote, "It's not new, and other games have chosen to highlight the strengths of their female characters, but where Bayonetta stands up with an iconic character design, or a 2B from Nier Automata inspires an entire generation of cosplayers, Eve from Stellar Blade is just bland. A doll sexualized by someone who has never seen a woman." Now, there's a whole lot to unpack there. But this article really launched the discussion surrounding Stellar Blade to new heights. And let's just say that a lot of people weren't happy with IGN after this article was published. And naturally, because it's the internet, the author of this article received a ton of backlash, and according to IGN France, they edited the article following death threats. Now, obviously, everybody should know this, but threatening someone is never okay, no matter what the issue is. And it's definitely not something you should do to pressure someone to do something. But IGN edited the article nonetheless, and so now it says a doll sexualized by someone you would think has never seen a woman, which is slightly less bad, but no matter how you slice it, it's still pretty insulting. Especially since it turns out that the game's director, Hyung-tae Kim, is supposedly happily married with a fellow concept artist. And well, Eve is their brainchild. So you might see why statements like this could be a tiny bit problematic. Now, before I continue, I do want to mention something that I've seen people fail to bring up when talking about this IGN article. And that is the fact that aside from the comments made about Eve's design, the author was actually very positive about everything else that the Stellar Blade demo had to offer. And I quote, "The good news is that now that I've explained the one reservation I have with this game, all that remains is positive. This Stellar Blade demo delighted me from start to finish. It's rare that when I reach the end of a demo, I immediately restart it to take another ride. Stellar Blade is full of good ideas, nothing really innovative, but we draw on all the trendy gameplay to make an explosive cocktail that gives incredible results. We have a Souls-like side, with demanding combat, tight parry and dodge timings, a refillable healing vial, and enemies who reappear after a rest. But at the same time, the game remains accessible with quickly manageable combat, an adjustable difficulty level, and generally a readable game that responds to the finger and the eye for perfect mastery of the battles. Eve executes with fearsome precision every dodge and parry you command for instantly satisfying combat." So obviously, it seems like most of us, even the author of this article themselves, agree that Stellar Blade has some very stellar gameplay. And so at the end of the day, I think it's very important not to neglect the entire review here just because of one admittedly needlessly insulting comment. Anyway, IGN was obviously not the first to criticize the aesthetics of Stellar Blade, and it was only last year where we saw a similar discussion surrounding a game that was upcoming. In fact, I remember the good old days back when Bayonetta and Nier Automata had released, and let me tell you, the discussions surrounding those games were equally chaotic. So I'm not really surprised that Stellar Blade has caused such an absolute shitstorm, because this unfortunately always seems to happen when you have a very attractive, almost unrealistically good-looking female protagonist. Just like today, people went bonkers over Bayonetta, who at that point was often cited to be the sexiest female protagonist ever in a video game, in an almost offensive way. But you know what? The general consensus nowadays is that Bayonetta is an icon of female power. She's hot, she's powerful, intelligent. It's everything you want in a protagonist. Then we had 2B, the protagonist of Nier Automata, a character that's become iconic partly because of her design, that quite frankly was pretty gratuitous in terms of sexiness, let's be fair. I mean, come on, Eve even uses the same power move when gliding down ladders as 2B. Now, for any of you who have actually played Nier Automata, you'll know that hidden beneath all of this eye candy, there's an excellent, even legendary game that boasts not only incredible combat, but a story that'll make you cry for days. In spite of that, we still have reviews like these on Steam where everybody is in some way highlighting 2B's beauty. Examples here being, I came for the booty and I left crying. Glory to humanity and black stockings. Came for the thighs, left with the cries. Brought some tissues but never thought I'd use them for tears. Start playing because the main character is kinda hot. Leave with depression and an existential crisis. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Now these are obviously just a few out of over 52,000 very positive reviews, and I'm only showcasing this to make the following point. The discussion surrounding Stellar Blade is not new. In fact, it's the same situation all over again, where people are yet again lured into thinking that the only interesting thing about the game is the sexiness of the protagonist, while in reality, even the short demo provided thus far shows that this is far from the truth. Another very recent example of sexualized characters, which undoubtedly some of you have already thought about, is that of several characters from a tiny little niche game called Baldur's Gate 3. In particular, we have the vampire Astarion. Now obviously it's not the exact same type of sexualization, but it's still a huge part of not only his character, but the entire game as a whole. I mean, the best marketing this game ever saw was an unintentional clip showcasing how it's possible to, well, to put it bluntly, bang a bear. Now obviously this is one of the more funnier parts of the game, but the point still stands. And I think that some people might just have to stand back a bit and just wait for Stellar Blade to come out, you know, before posting scathing statements about the game and its protagonist. Because just like in the case with Baldur's Gate 3, Nier Automata, Bayonetta, I bet that most people who were outraged over these games are feeling pretty foolish right about now. So coming from someone who likes to think of himself as a sort of reasonable individual, I say take a step back, chill, maybe touch some grass. It's okay for video game characters to be sexy. Frankly, we need more of this. Actually, what made me respect Stellar Blade's game director even more was his very clear statement on why Shift Up decided to make Eve's assets so very extraordinary. In an interview with Games Radar, he said, when it comes to the design, we put special attention on the back of the character because the player is always facing the back of the character when they're playing. That's what they see most of, and so we thought this was pretty important. And clearly, Young Take Him here is an ass man. My man. He also brought up this discussion that's surrounding the game currently, and I quote, Kim argues, however, that the studio's style is about more than pure titillation. The deliberately glamorous design of characters like Eve has become somewhat of a brave thing to be going for or attempting. I personally think that compared to movies, animations, manga, and so on, people are especially strict towards games. In games, there's all the views that people have which are not always positive about unrealistically beautiful characters. Honestly, when I play a game, I would like to see someone who is better looking than myself. That's what I want. I don't want to see something normal. I want to see something more ideal. I think that is very important in a form of entertainment. This is, after all, entertainment targeted for adults. And yeah, I mean, you just gotta respect the guy for telling it like it is. This is a video game for adults. It's not some hyper-realistic portrayal of our world. That said, you don't have to like it. And in that case, you don't have to play it. However, I and many, many others will, come this April 26 when Stellar Blade finally launches. With all this said, if you disagree with me, that's fine. If you agree with me, that's also very fine. And let me know what you think in the comments below. But remember, be respectful to each other, guys. And remember to subscribe to the channel for more. Mr. Holton, signing out.